used to do
But I always say that.
that. Yeah, me too. I did.
I don't know if everybody's signed in yet. If you guys are speaking tonight, you have to sign in.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The agendas are over there too, if anybody interested in looking at them.
All right, Bob, when you are ready, the floor is yours. I am live.
Oh, great. Thank you, Heather. So with that, we'd like to start the May 4th Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I would like to start this with a pledge of allegiance, so if we'd all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll start out real quick and do some minor housekeeping things. When we, well, first of all, emergency exits are to your right. There's some across the atrium here and also on the side towards the parking lot where most of you probably came in. When it's your turn, when your application is called, please step up to the podium, state your name and your address for the record, even though we may say your name when you come up. Please state it for the record and speak loud and clear into the microphone. Okay, so those are the only things we have there. Our board members will ask questions about the variance that's requested, and we'll make a ruling based on what we hear. So that's how that'll work. We need to do a roll call. Robert Peckham, present. Beth Mossworth.
Here.
John Migliorini is absent. Christian Chamberlain is absent. Heather Robinson.
Here.
Tim Harrington.
Present.
Aaron Lehman.
Present.
Thank you. Could I have a motion for last month's meeting minutes?
Mr. Chairman, with regards to the meeting minutes for April 6, 2022, I move to approve.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed and abstain. Aye. So we have two absent, that's John and Christian, and one abstain is Peckham. So the meeting minutes passed, or carry. Thank you very much. So with that, we can start out with application number 2022-014. And I hope I say this right. It's Zotessa Natasa. Yes, please come up to the podium if you can.
Did you mean 004?
004, I apologize. What did I say?
14.
Oh, thank you, 004. Do we have a, extra microphone? No, it's okay. That's okay, we'll,
So it's an access for 85 Wildbriar Road.
welcome.
Welcome.
And I'm sorry that I didn't say it quite right. I was,
That's okay. I feel like I was back in grade school. The teachers kind of couldn't figure my name out.
so you're here today because you have replaced a set of steps on the front of your house.
Yes.
And we'll ask you a series of questions. Some of them may be obvious, but we will still ask them. Why did you replace the steps?
I received a grant from Passtone to help me with certain parts of my home to make it more accessible for me.
And was there any deterioration or things of that nature with the prior steps that were there?
Yeah, severely deteriorated.
Okay. And it appears to me from driving in front of the house that you have replaced them with some sort of wood, whether pressure treated or whatever, but it's a wood couple of steps and a platform. that you-
Yes. Mhm.
Is there anything that's going to be done to that beyond what you have now, or is this what you have there today is what you anticipate keeping?
This is Chris Raymond from Passtone. He can help me answer this question.
Fine.
Debbie, we'd like to, if we're granted the variance, have the option or know how to do it if she ever wants to go with a ramp in the future. Is that what you?
What I wanted to do is, it's basically stay the same, but maybe the steps a little lower.
Lower steps. So are the steps that we see there today, Are those the ones that you're asking for? Did you build them and then need a permit to do them?
Yeah, the contractor had built them and then I'm like, get the permit. And he wasn't really up, his English isn't the best. So he came down for the permit and we found it out that we needed the variance
Yes.
because of the front setback, because the house is 50 feet from the road, I believe, and the setback's 50 feet. So that was in. So code knew it went on, but then, so we built the steps, we built them with a long run. I think the run on those is 18 inches. So we
Yeah.
went 3 boards wide so she could, so there was 1 step there or 2, I don't remember.
There's 3 steps and
So there's 3 steps there now, but they're only a 5-inch rise and like
Rise,
an
and then
18-inch
6,
run.
yeah, 16-inch run is what the document says.
And then I don't even know if we might have to modify those some more because that was like a year ago.
So are you telling me that we're expecting you to come back for another variance?
We don't want to, no.
no,
Does the variance that you're requesting cover the change that you're telling me about right now? Or does this variance cover the stairs that are there
Just
today?
what's there, so we need a permit.
I-
You anticipate coming back for different change to this again is, I guess, my question.
It won't surprise me in 3 or 5 years.
Let
I don't know.
me explain to you why I'm asking.
Yep.
If we give you this variance today for 4 feet, so you've asked for a variance of 4 feet. So 50 feet from the road offset is allowed, but you've asked us for 46 feet from the road. So you've asked for a 4-foot variance. If we acknowledge this variance and approve this, which I'm inclined to do, especially for the needs that you're addressing, do you anticipate having to come back to us again in a year or 5 years and say, I need it to be a 40-foot variance?
I'm hoping not
So
that to
this should be
happen
good in your opinion.
for, yeah, because I don't want to get any, physically, I'm hoping, I won't
Yes.
have to.
We
you
are
know.
too.
Yeah, but, and may I ask him, confirm with him
Yes.
for a second?
It's a valid way to ask that. I mean, they may need more, but we can't give more until they.
Well, if he says that the run is 18 inches and the drawing says 6, what's 18 times 3?
Just for something, because I helped her with the drawings and stuff.
Wait, I have to ask you to go to the,
Oh, sorry.
I
Oh,
apologize.
Chris Raymond, I work for Pastone. And we hired a surveyor to come out and measure everything. And then the steps, but 4 feet, it wouldn't be a 4-foot variance because we've got a 5-foot step anyways, because you need to swing. So the landing is approximately 5 feet from the house. It's scaled and then the steps come out after that.
Oh, you're asking for, so interesting.
Because you've got the landing, because you've got a storm door, so you've got to have a landing big enough to swing a storm door and stand on it. So that's approximately 5 feet or whatever scale on the drawings. And then there's 3 steps after that at approximately 18 inches each. So that's 36, 44, 54 plus 5 feet. So you're about 100 inches off the house, maybe?
So this is interesting because when I look at the 2 things, I think, well, let me ask a question. This is to the woman who we hear speaking. Heather, I see on the application, Heather, that it says 46 feet, but they crossed off 42 foot 9 inches. Which was advertised?
We advertised the 46 feet per the conversation that Chris and the building department had with the applicant.
So,
Yeah, that has to be like this miscommunication when we're talking. It's definitely not. You can't even build a landing 4 feet off the house.
Right, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
You can't build a landing 4 feet off the house and open the door and everything.
Right, so according to code, we measure to the landing,
Okay.
not the stairs for a variance.
Okay, then that's
Stairs don't
correct.
count, so that's why it was at 46 feet.
Okay,
If you're looking to put it, and I think what Mr. Chairman was looking to allude to, if you're looking to put in a ramp in the future, if you, if you are, the setback has to go to that ramp because that's part of the structure itself as well.
gotcha.
So you would not be able to go forward of the 46 feet with a ramp
Without another variance.
without another variance.
yes,
So.
It's pretty simple on our end when we know we have to do it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay.
and hopefully you don't have to.
Right.
So Kevin, do you feel that this is correct with what they're saying?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
measuring to the, was presented as a 4-foot deep landing.
Yeah, the top of the landing, yep,
So it's 4 foot out from the house.
yep,
Thank you.
So 50 minus 4 to 46.
right, and I'd include the
Thank
stairs,
you.
I didn't
Yep.
know.
It
Thanks.
actually looks like there's an extra 0.9 inches there.
So
Or
we'll-
a 9/10 of a foot extra, that's because it was 50.9 to the house. The
Okay,
variance is for 46.
so we're okay. This
So you
covers it.
have another,
Okay, so we're good.
you're
Okay,
good.
so with that, and assuming that you don't think you need more in the next short period of time, I'm comfortable with this. Are there any questions from any other board members?
Nope.
Aaron, you're good? So with that, we'll close this application.
Mr. Chairman, is there anybody in the audience that has any comments?
I'm sorry, thank you, Heather. You're a good watcher for me here. Is there anybody from the audience? She's wonderful. Are there any other members of the audience that have any questions or comments about this application? Heather, is there anyone else on Zoom or whatever we're using that would have any comments?
I have our council member Millie online, but I do not see that she has any comments at the moment.
Wonderful. So now I will close this application. So let me read my findings of fact. I have to zoom in. Okay. So with regards to application ZBA 2022-004 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing and has considered all relevant information, has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. It will actually improve the appearance and the safety for the homeowner. The variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. The steps need to be safe and the location is fixed. The cost of concrete is obviously higher, so the wood was an excellent alternative. The variance requested is not substantial and is the smallest option to fulfill the safety need that's required. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical and or environmental conditions. The small structure is barely in the way of any of that physical or environmental conditions. And the difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created. The need is due to deteriorating concrete and the fault of, and is not the fault of the homeowner. And be it further resolved that based upon the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approve the variances as presented.
I'll second.
Seconded by Heather. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All opposed, I have to ask it,
Nope.
and there's nobody opposed. So the variance carries and you'll receive information in the mail for that. Thank you.
Thanks.
good evening.
Have a good evening. Okay. Next, I would like to bring up 2022-007-008-009, 1180 Jefferson Road by Juicy Seafood Super Crab.
I don't have them online. Are they in the audience?
I'm gonna say no.
No.
Oh dear.
I got stood up 2 months in a row.
It seems that way. Let me try reaching out to him, Tim.
And I'll postpone this till the end if you want.
I'll keep you posted.
Thanks. See how good she is? I mean, she is on the ball. Okay, next we have application 2022-013, Virginia Orzel, 6 foot tall fence, 24 Deborah Drive. Welcome.
Hi,
Please state your name and address clearly for the record.
it's Virginia Orzel, 24 Deborah Drive in Henrietta.
Welcome, Virginia. Aaron, you can start this one.
So I know a few of us have some questions regarding your garden and the fence. One of my first questions is, you're asking for a fence height double of what is allowed under current code. And I'm assuming, is there a reason why you put the fence at the height it is now?
Yes, because my mom moved in with me 3 years ago and she loves to garden. And
Mhm.
so I was doing it for her, and she's older, she's in her late 70s, and all the critters were eating all of her blossoms off of her plants. And so she wanted to grow, and I'm helping her grow vegetables for the food pantry at the church that's on Calvary Community Church.
Yes.
We're one of the only places that gives fresh vegetables. There's another gardener, but we supply like all the zucchini and all the acorn squash and tomatoes and cucumbers. And so we were trying to protect the garden from being eaten I get a lot of deer in my yard.
Mhm.
And so having a 3-foot fence, the deer can just basically crawl over the top of the fence.
Mhm.
And so it was to keep all the critters out, and we've been successful. I apologize because this is my first home I've ever owned, and I did not realize there were rules in place. So I've learned really quickly that you have to, I've only ever lived in apartments, so I did not know all these rules, so I apologize. So my goal was just to keep the critters out. That was really why I did it, and it's working. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but
Yep.
it's all wired mesh, like you can
Mhm.
see through it. So I wasn't trying to have anything obstructive or anything like that.
Mhm. Have you tried growing a garden in the backyard? I'm just curious.
Yes, failed every single time.
Okay.
This is like the best place for the vegetables. We've tried all different places around the yard. My neighbor, if you're facing my house to the left, has a huge oak tree in the back. And so 90% of the back of the yard is shaded. And a lot of these vegetables, you need sun. And so I've tried all kinds of different places in the yard, and we have failed with the vegetables.
I would like to ask a question. When I drove by the front of the house, I did not come out to your backyard or anything like that. We wouldn't do that without asking also, but on Google Maps, we can see the general outline of your yard. You have a fence out back that's at it might be saying the wrong word, but an odd angle compared to what I think the shape of your yard is. So your fence goes not square to your house is a better way to say it.
That was Lowe's. I thought it was squared. And interestingly enough, I Googled it recently too. And I go, oh, well, now that's a strange angle. I did not know that it was crooked like that, the back end.
So that is not your property line is my bigger question.
No, but my property line, I have a 30-foot drop, like past that fence, it goes straight down.
Oh,
And there's no way my mother would ever be able to go on that hill. I'll tell you what, I have my neighbor Taylor here who helps me all the time. And he actually mows my backyard because when I first got the house, I was actually slipping on the hill when I was mowing it. You cannot even keep your feet straight. Your feet go right up to your shins when you're standing on that hill.
well, that's good to understand because that's not visible in the aerial map. So I'm glad that's explained. And probably explains the angle of the fence, right?
Right. They probably went on the flat part, and that's probably why they did it, because if you go across the straight there, it's like a big old cliff that is right
Okay.
off the end of it, which is really interesting because most of Rochester is completely flat. And I have like probably one of the only steep hills in the area.
You have the cliff.
Yeah.
Well, that helps me understand. I was wondering why we wouldn't put it back there or have some other things. That's a good piece of information for us. I will, Aaron, if you're okay with it, I'll read some of the comments that came in.
Mhm.
So we did receive comments from different properties around your facility, around your house. The Michelle Cardell at 23, she's right here.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I don't have to read it, but it sounds like we have some approval from her. And by all means, when we're done, don't let me forget to let you come up and talk if you would like. Hang on. I'm sorry, I should have been more clear on the address. 27 Deborah Drive, Taylor McPherson. Okay, here also, likewise, same for you. You're welcome to talk when we go from here. Again, that's an approval, so at least he's sitting here not complaining about it. 28 Deborah Drive. Okay, here we go. Another approval there, or another thumbs up. They're in favor. And I also have one that was a call-in. I do not have a house number that it called in from, but that is against it. So you actually do have ones that are against it. They don't agree with the height that the critters will get in and shouldn't be in the front yard. They feel that it has a negative effect on property value. And so for me, as you know, someone only driving by, I don't live next door to you. The house is very well maintained. The fence clearly does what it needs to do as far as critter retention, but it is not straight or square or anything of that nature. And my nature says that that's a little, to me, it does give me a little bit of question. If I was a neighbor, I would be asking about it as well. I appreciate some things that you said, though, that I didn't take into account well beforehand. The notion that you're donating the vegetables to a very worthy cause is something that I will consider when I'm making my assessment here. But there's back and forth for me. I'm sort of on the, no pun intended, I'm sort of on the fence on how I will rule on this, but this is a board, not just one person.
So I would ask, right, so we've got a lot of factors that we consider when addressing these applications. One is the actual code itself. This is twice what is allowed. The other is the character of the neighborhood. Is it in line with the character of the neighborhood? So I would ask, is there anything that you could conceive of that you could do to make the aesthetic maybe match the rest of the fence in the back in terms of color or style, or anything that could make it look more harmonious with the rest of the aesthetic of the neighborhood?
Are you basically asking if we're going to paint the fence? Is that where I'm kind of understanding where you're going with that? Or
I think there's two parts to that. One part for my thing, and this is it's a factor on if I'll vote yes or no, to be honest, is it is not square and lined up. It's functional, but it's not, well, to be blunt, it's not true to the earth or anything like that. It's
You're
sort of
talking about the vertical posts, Bob, Mr.
the
Chairman?
horizontal posts and the vertical posts. The vertical posts have different heights across all of them and things of that nature. To me, is sort of with my OCD is something that gets under my visual cue that I.
so you're concerned about the fence isn't square, but Mr. Harrington asked about painting. Am I correct in that? I just want to
Well,
make sure.
yeah, sure, understood. So that my question was, is there anything you've considered that could improve the aesthetic to more closely match the character of the neighborhood, right? So the rest of the neighborhood doesn't have like fences. So have you put thought into things that you could potentially do? Paint would be one, leveling the posts might be another, for example.
Definitely, we did buy a bucket of paint because we used, again, I'm new to all of this. We used pressure treated wood, and we didn't know that it was going to
A time to settle or
go
whatever.
gray,
Yeah.
right? So we did this year buy a thing of paint. We're waiting to paint until after this because I'd hate to paint it and then y'all say you gotta cut it down 3 feet. But yeah, we're planning on, I've got to power wash it and then we're planning on painting it. Part of, we did, Taylor helped me with building the fence and we did do all the strings and have the levels and the measure. We did do this by hand and there were a ton of huge rocks, some of which we couldn't get out of the ground. And
Yes.
so we relocated our posts so that we could get them in the ground. We actually did bury them 2 feet into the ground, about 1.5 feet, I think, right? 18 inches, I think it was. And we did put cement, that quick drying cement.
Yes.
So I'm not opposed to straightening this. I'm not sure how we also had tree roots that we ran into and we had cable lines that we ran into. And so kind of moved things, so I'm not sure how straight I can get it. But I'm willing to look into it if that is like a deal breaker on this. And I could investigate more of how to straighten that out, if that's,
Yeah, acknowledge. My thought is the aesthetic of it jumps out mostly because it doesn't match the rest of the fence. But let me ask this question. It looks like the uprights are as tall as they are so that there can be a net stretched across the whole entire.
yeah,
surface?
we had bird netting over the top, and this past winter kind of ruined the bird netting. So we took it off because there was just all these holes and birds are actually getting caught in there.
Yeah.
So I took that off early spring, and we were waiting. We're going to buy more bird netting if you guys are okay with the 6 foot. And what we do, and he helps me with that too, is we stretch it over the top. Hence why we have the extra posts that are sticking up, because I am 6 foot and my mom's only 5 foot. So I have to say that if I was shorter, this fence wouldn't be this high.
Well,
So-
here's one thought. If the fence that's stretched across is for birds, not for deer, if you were to remove the portion of the uprights that get it to 6 feet, which make the net over the whole thing functional, you could remove that portion of it, which I think would increase the aesthetic. It wouldn't affect the functionality of keeping the deer up because because if the deer jump over that, they're going to get stuck in that net like the deer, right? So could you eliminate the bird fence portion of that and cut off the unused portion of the uprights and effectively make the whole thing shorter?
We will have to build something to go over the top of the garden boxes because the birds will get into it and eat, because we have strawberries
Yeah.
so we will have to then create something to cover the boxes because the birds do eat some of the items that are in the garden.
Probably a good thing I'm not next door because I might eat some of the things in the garden. It sounds wonderful.
Actually, we do share with our neighbors.
I'll be over later.
Yeah, we give strawberries and zucchini and all kinds of things. So we do. The reason it's this large is because we share with everyone. And I don't know if this makes a difference to you guys or not. And I'm going to get a little emotional. My mom sacrificed a lot
Yep.
for me as a kid. She was a single mom.
Yep.
And she couldn't retire. So I had her move in. And one of her loves and passions that she's always wanted to do is garden and cook. She's 77 years old. She's not going to live much longer. And I can guarantee you guys this, that whenever she passes or gets too old to do this, that fence is coming down. It's not a permanent thing. It's just, I'm trying to make a dream happen for my mom.
It would be wonderful if we could have a solution that you could do all of those things and keep it in around or after the fact, right? So
Yeah.
in that spirit and trying to come to something that might help you out here, could you remove the bird fence portion, drop the height of those posts, paint it all so it looks harmonious, and then put tarps or fences over the individual boxes?
We could do, well, I don't think it'd be tarps, but it'd be because the sun has to get in, but it would have to be some sort of
Net material.
netting material for the individual boxes.
And then you could theoretically get in and out without having to duck underneath that fencing and just maintain with just the mesh over each of the boxes.
Yeah, I kind of miscalculated. I got 8 foot posts
yeah.
and then didn't consider that we had to put them in the ground like 2 feet, and then somehow, or I think I got 6 foot long posts and then put them in the ground. They were a little short. That's why I built the additions onto the top of them. I should have gotten 8 or 10 foot posts originally, but
And then cut
yeah.
them to height. Kevin, quick question for you. If she were, when we look at this, what are we measuring when we ask for this variance? Is it the posts or is it the horizontal or all of it?
I would say the majority of the height. So,
So the horizontal is really the bigger thing. The
correct.
posts are every 8 or 10 feet, whatever it is.
Yes.
How high is the highest of the two vertical supports.
5'6".
And then I didn't measure it, but visually they're another foot, give or take, above that with the post, correct?
Correct.
Give or take.
Correct.
Kevin, the other question that I have is if there was a higher post in the middle, would that cause a problem? One. I have an idea. That's why I'm asking.
I see where you're going with this. I think I would say no, because it's not really part of the fence itself. It's just a support for the netting. Yeah.
I wonder if you could, so for me, I'm not a fan of this 7 foot, give or take, posts. And I think that's, when I think about this and we discuss it, that is my biggest problem.
The extensions?
The above the top horizontal.
Mhm.
I don't think that's appealing aesthetically, and I think as a neighbor, that would be the thing that bothers me. I love many of the things that you have said. The fact that you're so generous, that your mother seems like a wonderful woman, and the fact that you're trying to fulfill some a desire that she has is really admirable, and not everybody does that. So wonderful. She raised a good daughter.
Thanks.
We can't always look at all those personal factors when we're doing this, but we can try to come to some agreement that fulfills both needs. Our desire to make sure that the neighborhood has some level of continuity that is acceptable to all, and your need for this solution. So my request is twofold, and I would make it part of the resolution if the rest of the board agrees with it. I would ask you to cut off the excess of these side posts, or the verticals, just above the horizontal top bar. And I would suggest maybe there's a way you can get a single post or two, maybe roughly in the middle of your fenced in area as a support for like a tent style. I realize you're saying net, and I agree, net, but make it so that that's something that you could walk in. And I feel like this would, for a majority of my concerns, would address it, but I think it would also address the needs that you have. Is that a consideration that you would?
I'd be willing to do that. And I can actually unscrew those extra posts because they actually screwed them in. So I can take all of those down.
Well, so there's my, and I'm one of the board, so everybody else has to agree, but that is my recommendation. I don't know if any other board members would agree with my theory there.
I
but-
would. Yeah, and so just to confirm, so you want the excess post cut off and then the fence to be painted as well?
I think it needs to be more aesthetic because it is definitely not in character. This part of it is not in character with the neighborhood, in my opinion.
Painted or stained, whatever is the
Yes,
best solution.
more matching, more in character. So I think in the resolution, if that is acceptable to a majority of us,
My only comment, Mr. Chairman, would be to maintain a see-through fence, just because
Oh.
this does go in perpetuity to, the next homeowner.
that's a
So
good,
what
that's a
are
good
the-
addition.
Conditions I had
Yep.
drafted was
Okay, perfect.
maintaining no more than 50% screening.
That's
Which-
probably fine.
It's a deer fence. They want the garden to grow so that, but in perpetuity,
Yeah.
I think that's probably
yeah.
accurate. So the three things, the height can't be over, we'll say 6 foot, because she's gonna be close to that, 6 feet. And it has to be less, partial screen there.
Mhm. Do you think we need the height on that? So if you want to say 6 feet on that is the height?
Well, I think we have to stick to that, because I think that no part of the fence, the outer fence can be above 6 feet.
Okay.
And that, by that, you mean the horizontal of, you're not talking about the tent
No.
part? Okay.
Of the fence, not a post that you put in. To me, that's almost like a flagpole or something you could put in there.
Mhm.
We're not done, though. We haven't heard everything from other people. Beth, are you okay with what we're saying?
I'm good.
Tim said he's okay, and you're okay, Heather?
Yeah, as long as we make it more aesthetically pleasing, I would be okay with that.
Okay. And then we also have to hear from any members of the audience. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a comment based on anything they've heard from our side of this, but also from the applicant side? please. And again, state your name and address, even though we sort of know.
Hi, my name is Taylor McPherson. I live at 27 Deborah Drive. I would like to thank the board for taking a look into the matter and also for giving us a chance to speak. I have very little to reiterate in terms of Virginia Roselle's considerations towards others, especially with the last 2 years being what they have been. As the person who will likely directly be helping her with these adjustments, I just want to let you know that we will take the matter seriously.
Thank you.
And we will bring questions to you guys if we have future ones that come up. Thank you.
Thank you. We trust that you will do the right thing. So with that, once Aaron is ready. Oh, Heather, is there anybody virtually that would like to comment?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, so
Mr. Chairman, that's one point. Did you want to put a limit on the height of the center posts?
that, do you think that's wise? Is that something that we have to,
We wouldn't want a, 20-foot post in the middle and
what do you think would be appropriate for the height of the center post to make sure that you're covering your need? And I agree with Mr. Wilson that we shouldn't, it really shouldn't be 25 feet or something like that.
If we could hit, and the reason I did 6 foot 6 inches is because it's easier for me to walk through. Because exactly at 6 foot, I'm like ducking and everything or running in. Bird netting gets stuck on you. So I would like it tall enough that if it could be like 6 foot 6 inches.
Well,
I was going to suggest at least 8. Just
I was
Oh,
gonna
8
say
feet? You think an 8?
because it's going to sag on you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I would say 8 or 10 feet, you'd
Yeah.
be fine. I'd say don't exceed 10.
On the posts.
That way we're covering ourselves too, because everything we decide here today is in perpetuity with your property.
Okay,
So if somebody comes in from 10 years from now and says, hey, I can put a 6-foot fence up and have a 10-foot post, that is something they can do because we've just approved it. So by
okay,
having certain limitations, these are things that we have to pay attention to. And
Okay.
that's why we are having so many questions for you.
And I think because of that foreverness in perpetuity, I think we should limit to its existing location. Because if, somebody comes along and they
As
say, "Oh,
drawn?
put this all over my yard,"
As drawn on plan.
yeah.
Also note that that's an important distinction there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the solution. It's right for you, right? If you wanted to put posts around each of the boxes with bird netting that is 3 feet high, just to cover the boxes, that you could also do that.
Yes.
okay, thank you,
Yeah.
Yep,
thank
but
you.
we are putting a limit to the max.
Okay, thank you. And I can promise you, we don't want it any bigger.
Thank you.
Yeah, and not to mention that netting is not inexpensive either.
Pardon me, what was that?
That netting is not inexpensive either.
No, it is not. No, it is not. I think it costs us like $200-300 for,
Wow.
yeah,
I'm touched by the work you do for this, so I appreciate that very much.
thanks.
And the community does too, I'm sure of that.
They do. Actually, I have been there when I dropped off food for people picking it up. And these are people who normally don't get fresh vegetables and fruit. They usually have to eat canned. And they always say, God bless you. And they're just so appreciative of the food. And that's why we keep doing it.
It's great.
Well, I think it's wonderful. You ready? Yep. Okay, so with that, we will close this application.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to application number ZBA 2022-013 for an area variance, I move to approve as follows. Whereas the zoning board has duly advertised and held a public hearing, has considered all relevant information, and has considered the potential benefit to the applicant versus the potential detriment to the neighborhood or community in relation to such variance. Now therefore be it resolved that the zoning board of appeals makes the following findings of fact. The variance will not result in an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties. While the deer fence is not common in the neighborhood, it does not impose a detriment to neighborhood properties. Several neighbors have provided letters of support. Letters of support have indicated that the garden in which the fence protects has strengthened the surrounding community. Due to existing conditions in local the variance cannot be achieved by some other feasible alternative. Due to existing conditions in local wildlife, the variance cannot be achieved by another alternative. Removal of trees to allow sunlight in the backyard would have adverse environmental conditions. The variance requested is substantial. It is substantial in that the requested height of the fence to be allowed is double the allowed height under existing code. The variance will not have a negative effect on physical or environmental conditions. The fence does not impose any significant health, safety, or welfare concerns to the residents, and no environmental impacts are foreseen. The variance provides a solution in which it has the least environmental impact. The difficulty relating to the variance was not self-created. Environmental and wildlife create conditions in which are not in control of the applicant. And be it further resolved and based on the above findings, the zoning board of appeals hereby approves the variance as presented, and be it further resolved that this approval shall be subject to the following conditions. Fence screening shall not exceed 50%. The fence location is limited to its existing location as drawn on the plans. No part of the horizontal member shall exceed 6 feet. Vertical post shall not exceed 10 feet. Excess post link shall be removed. The fence shall be painted.
I'll second that. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate your time.
We appreciate yours.
Good evening.
Keep up the good work. It's
Oh, I
important.
do have one recommendation. When you put in your center posts, you should try to get a depth of 4 to 5 feet. When you set your center posts, you should try to get them 4 to 5 feet in the ground. And that's because of freeze thaw conditions can heave those posts.
And he's a landscape architect.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, if you can, I know how hard that is to dig that deep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Best of luck. I'd say last, but last one on the list at least is 2022-014, which is 720 Jefferson Road, DeBella's Italian Market. Have a good evening.
Hello, I'm Mike Bonanno, and I represent Skylight Sign Company, and I'll be manufacturing the sign potentially for Joseph DeBella at DeBella's Italian Markets.
How are you? I'm Joseph DeBella from 620 Jefferson Road is the actual building location, but the plaza is 720 Jefferson Road. And we're proud to be in Henrietta. And thanks for taking the time tonight.
Thank you. I can say I love your subs.
Oh, thank you.
I second that.
So Beth, would you like to start?
Can you give a little more information in regards to why Fresh Bake for Our Subs bread lighted sign is going to enhance this location
Sure.
from the two existing wall signs that indicate what the business is?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So we have two goals that we're trying to accomplish here. You might not know, but we're actually in 5 states and we have over 40 stores. But my first store was actually in Henrietta. I bought the business off an uncle of mine at the end of 1989. I had one store. That store at the time was only 874 square feet. It was very small. And we didn't bake bread yet. So I started baking bread actually in Henrietta for the whole brand. That has definitely shaped and guided the whole goal of what we do best. The bread is what kind of separates us from other brands. So over the years, I've tried to build a better and better store in that one plaza, which used to be across from Southtown Plaza. We eventually built our first store with seating, which used to be the end of the Kmart Plaza. There was a Kmart section and we took over the Kmart garage, and that became my first store with seating. Over time, I had a goal to really build a flagship store for the whole company, and I wanted it to be in Henrietta. So we then worked out a new arrangement for the location we're at now. In 2010, we opened up what I called DeBella's Italian Market. So we actually changed the name to Italian Market. Originally, it was just DeBella's Old Fashioned Submarines. And for that location, it's the only one in the whole company called DeBella's Italian Market. The goal was to really have it stand out as being a flagship visit, a flagship store. And every few years, I try to reinvest into the architecture of the store. So this year, with COVID going on the past 2 years, it's been interesting. Obviously, everybody's been a little struggling with customer service. The energy of the store is not quite what I'd like it to be for our employees. It's not quite what I'd like it to be for our customers. So we've been making an investment over the past 2 years on improvements on the inside of the store. And the goal is for the exterior to feel as if something exciting is happening. So we thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could highlight the bread, which we've always been so proud of, highlight the fact that it's special here in Henrietta and that Henrietta is the flagship store. How can we do something that we've never done before on the outside of the building? And we've never done anything like this in any of the stores. And so we thought, wouldn't this be special if Henrietta could have a very unique exterior sign to really kind of showcase and highlight the fact that this is really where the bread started. And that's the goal, is to make the exterior feel as if something special is happening to the interior, but at the same time, really showcase the fact that the bread is what we're so proud of and what separates our product.
And is there anything that you can tell us about the design itself? And
Yeah,
how you got to that?
Yeah,
Does it represent anything?
I studied about 600 signs between New York City, California, sections of Chicago, and I kept working with Mike on visions that I saw and how we could kind of alter it. And the goal was to have a nostalgic feeling, because the first store in 1918 was actually built by my great grandfather. It wasn't just their business. It was on Portland Avenue in the city. It was truly their home. They lived above the store. It was their apartment above the store. They had the business below the store. Eventually that neighborhood changed. It just it's not the safe neighborhood it once was. And so my uncle, my grandfather, not my great grandfather, my great grandfathers had a son, my grandfather. He had a brother who eventually took the business to Henrietta. And so he had it here in Henrietta for 10 years before I bought it. And so what's interesting is that the roots to the store started with, the city, but for me, the roots are really here in Henrietta. And so it's pretty special. And once again, I wanted to play off of that nostalgic feeling of the past. Obviously, we've been around since 1918, which is pretty special. Not many businesses have that kind of strong history. So everything we try to design on the inside of the store and on the outside, you might not realize, but I designed that whole building. So we wanted to have a freestanding building. The Plaza owner wanted us to be part of the Plaza. My goal, though, was to have a freestanding building and not be part of a plaza. So what they allowed us to do was basically design our exterior, and then they redesigned their plaza off of our exterior. So everything you see about that brick exterior is based on, if we built a freestanding building, what might that have been? And so the goal is to definitely play off of a nostalgic building from the early 1900s that you may have seen in a city. And so some of these signs you would see if you're in a city and you're driving along, you would see these vertical signs as you're driving the street. It's one of the main type of signage they use in any city because they're close to the road. And it has a very kind of nostalgic, historic uniqueness. And I'm pretty proud of what Mike put together. So that's kind of how the thought came to life.
Are you a Henrietta resident?
No, I'm not, but my first place I ever lived actually was here down the street from our store here in Henrietta. And it was an apartment. But today I live on the other side of town, but the original store for me has always been Henrietta.
This particular sign is really meant for plaza goers as opposed to street. You're not really going to see this from the road because it's actually parallel to the road. So Joe's vision was to make it more pleasing when you're inside the plaza as opposed to having to see it when you're driving by.
As you walk up, it's not going to have incredible presence from the street. But what it does have is real charm. It's nostalgic. You park your car and as you're coming up to the building, it just really makes a statement, I believe, that you feel like before you walk in, you're about to definitely experience something that's much different than your average sub shop. And once again, I keep trying to, if you haven't been inside the store lately, we've been making some serious changes to the inside. There's an awful lot of new woodwork this past 12 months. It's a pretty special interior right now. And we'd like people to feel like something on the outside gives you a little taste of what's going on the inside. It's a pretty special project at the moment.
With this sign, is there any plans to sell the bread to the public or only with the?
Well,
sign?
at this store is the only store that you could actually come in and walk up to the counter and get a loaf of bread. That's something we've done since we built the Italian market. We don't really try to market that or promote that. That's not really our goal. And that's why at the bottom of the sign, it says fresh baked for our subs, because the real goal is just to make you understand that we're proud of what we're about to build your sub on. But if you walk up to that counter today, you can buy a loaf of bread or a couple loaves of bread to bring home. What we won't do is, which we get, is we'll get a sandwich shop who would like us to make their bread for them. So they'd like to buy like 6 dozen pieces of bread, and we have no interest in doing that.
Any other alternative to having this kind of message that you could think of that does not include such a large sign on to the building?
No, the goal here is really to try to have the sign be almost part of the architecture so that there's a nostalgia to the actual structure of the sign and the brick building itself. When I see this sign and look at it, I'm looking beyond actually the statement of the bread and more of just how does it make me feel? You know, you have this beautiful brick building, which many people don't spend the money on these days. Most of the time you see these plazas where they just do drive it and something much more inexpensive. We actually spent the money even where the trash cans are on the back side of the building, all in brick, because I really wanted all 3 sides to be brick. And what I love about the way this trims the building is it actually feels to me more like a piece of the architecture, and it just makes the building feel that much more nostalgic, which is really what my goal is.
Yeah, I would add personally, I think, everyone's got their opinion on things. My opinion is you use the word charm. I think that's the most appropriate in my opinion. I think it adds charm.
Kevin, when we look at a third sign here, are we also paying attention to the size of that sign? Because this sign is 13 feet tall
Yeah, I was just looking at the math. I think this is 50 square feet, 52 square feet. I would have to look at the existing 2 signs. I don't know if I have.
Do you
that.
know how big the existing 2 signs are already? Square footage?
Yes.
I know we're way under what we're allowed. And once again, it was interesting when we built the building in 2010, we could have done something much larger straight across where the awnings are. And I said, no, for me, it's more of how does the architecture feel? And so the signage that we have on the building at this time, I know is way below what we would have been allowed. But the 2 of us talked about it. And I said, look, I want it to feel, no other store that we have has black signs, by the way, which are the least visible in the industry.
What are the other stores? I can't remember.
I'm sorry, what's that?
What color signs are the other
So
stores?
most of them, unless a plaza has a rule, they're red.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it's the
that's right.
easiest thing to read. And for this store, everybody said, you're crazy. Why aren't you making them red? I said, because I want it to feel more like an old fashioned market. And some of the markets that I really admired were black signs on brick, which to be honest, those black letters, they don't light up. The only thing that lighten them up are the lights. And so it's not the most impressive sign, but the building itself feels right to me. And so I kind of sacrificed the signage when we built the building to really have the architecture feel right to me.
Mr. Chairman, including this sign, it would be 226 square feet. So they're underneath the 250.
Okay, so there's no question about sign.
Correct.
Even
though this is a double-sided sign, we only count the one side as far as bearing.
So all 3 signs combined is under the 250.
It'd be 226.
Okay. So it's not a size question.
How long will the sign be lighted?
So as you can see, the white letters are what would be lit, and those obviously would be lit up late in the afternoon. The goal is to have that white look nice and bright. So at some point in the afternoon, throughout the night, usually we have them shut down at like 2 in the morning because RIT kids coming and going down Jefferson Road, it still has a value to me, even if we're closed, to have the sign lit. So if you ever drive by our store at night, we have certain neons in the window that I feel have value still. And so our goal is to have those seen as people drive up and down Jefferson Road. Obviously, the college teams, the college kids, everybody who's kind of up and down Jefferson late at night. It's still the best way to market yourself is some of that signage. So usually I think we have the timers go off around 2 o'clock.
So even though the bread sign that you originally indicated wouldn't necessarily be driving business or visible, you are saying that you can.
It's part of the
still see it
architecture. So to me,
from
the
Jefferson.
lights in the building stay on too, as far as the exterior lighting. So if you notice, our building has an awful lot of gooseneck lights. It also has an awful lot of up and down lights. All of those lights stay on until about 2 in the morning. And so
So you
for this sign to be off, it's like you're losing a piece of the architecture.
So the signage can be seen from Jefferson.
I'm not saying it can't be seen. I'm just saying it's not the most impressive signage. So if you're driving down Jefferson Road, this sign, if you look at the building that we've got for you for a photograph, if you're driving down Jefferson Road, this sign is actually not going to jump at you because it's actually on the side of the building facing Starbucks. So unless you turn your head and really study the building, which you're not going to, you're going to have your eyes forward, it'll be difficult for you to really appreciate the sign. Same thing coming the other way. You're going to see the side of the sign. You're not going to see the face of the sign. So we even talked about, you could change the position to get it to be more visible. And I said, no, I don't think architecturally it looks as nice. And so for me, it's more appreciated once you park your car and walk up to the building is where you really see it. But when you look at it at night, I do think it's part of the trim of the building. It's part of the character of the building. It's part of the charm of the building.
Are there any other businesses within this plaza that indicate what the business is, but without putting word of the business on the sign?
I haven't paid any attention to anybody else in the plaza, to be honest.
And what value do you believe that DeBella's at this location will garner back from this sign, aesthetic aside?
The biggest goal for me is that it's a flagship visit. So when a customer hears about the market, hears about our Henrietta location, they actually go out of their way to find it and go experience it. I'm a fan of flagship companies. So for instance, LL Bean, which is not a company that sells food. I went out of my way to go see what is their flagship store. And if you've ever been to Freeport, Maine, where they have their flagship store, it's a very special visit. It is not the best and newest architecture because it's been there quite a while, but it almost feels like a college campus. And if it wasn't for them and all their small buildings that they created, the rest of that village would never have gotten developed the way it has. And what's interesting is it's a really special visit. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. This plaza, you might not realize, I developed with the plaza owner. And so this particular plaza and everything you see about the success we've had in Henrietta, we've had many conversations to make sure we make the right choices to how this plaza gets shaped. And the Starbucks that you see was added a few years ago. I designed it. That Starbucks is not a Starbucks that just got thrown up. They couldn't build that Starbucks because I had a no build zone. And what I wanted to do was make sure Henrietta didn't get some ordinary looking Starbucks. I wanted a Starbucks that looked special. So I worked with the plaza owner even on what that Starbucks looked, so that when my customer comes walking out of the store and they look across the parking lot, they're looking at a beautiful Starbucks. And I think it, to be honest, is one of the nicer ones I've seen.
Any of the locations within the Rochester area that have been built post this building?
Pardon me?
Any of the Rochester locations that have been built post 2010, what kind of aesthetics do they have that mimic this location?
So we've got about 29 stores in other states that have borrowed ideas from this location on the interior. One store in Rochester. So if you're at the location that we have in Brighton, over by the Costco, that Costco store is newer. The interior is all white tile. This particular store is the first store we ever did with an all white tile kitchen. All white tile bakery, all white ceilings bakery. It was a very new look for us. First store that we ever did where the bakery actually didn't have any windows. All the other stores in Rochester, there's like a window that you kind of look through, even if you're in the store to see the bread being baked. I lowered that window and opened it all up for the market. Once we did that, we really loved it. So 29 other stores that we built in other states ended up having that style, that interior. What this store is, though, if you've never been in it, it's quite large. This is a 6,000 square foot first floor. So our regular stores are more like 3,600 square feet, the one that I just mentioned at Costco. It doesn't have the room to be everything this store is. This store has, it's a gorgeous Italian market. with all types of meats and cheese on display, very large coolers with meats and cheese all stacked and hanging. We don't have the room for that in 3,600 square feet. And that's why this one's 6,000 square feet.
Are the locations in the 29 other locations that were built, are they owned by yourself or are they franchised?
No, we're not franchised. We're all company owned. I partnered up with the people that used to own Wendy's hamburger restaurants. And so the family, the Fox family, who used to own the Wendy's hamburger restaurants locally, they actually owned over 100 Wendy's. I partnered up with the father. He passed away about 3 years ago, but the father and I partnered up back when I had one store, and then we've gone off to build 44 other stores.
Do you see yourself ever wanting to put more of these fresh baked for our subs bread signs on any of the other locations?
Well, we haven't seen this one up yet. I mean, if Mike does the job that I think he's going to do, I think the company is going to love it, and it'll be great to see if we could do this again. But for me, to be honest, I'm more interested in just getting it done for this store, because like my goal has always been, if you go to the store right now, you'll see some beautiful new tables that are made out of reclaimed wood and very, very large timbers. It's not affordable to do for all stores. It's way too much of an investment. I own a timber frame home that looks like a lodge, and the builder that built my home, this was 20 years ago, we've become very close. And I came up with this idea to do something very special that felt like an Italian market from the early 1900s with a lot of wood. And so now all of the tables that used to be booths, all of the tabletops are this gorgeous reclaimed wood. And we have some high tables now where we never used to. We always had booths. Now we have some high tables that are made out of very, very large timbers, and they're all reclaimed for like old barns, old buildings, beautiful, gorgeous wood that they kind of hand spec for us. I can't do that for the other stores. It's just mathematically doesn't make a lot of sense. But for this store, I'm proud of it. I want it to be special.
I have to say, nobody would ever say that you're not enthusiastic about your business.
Some people say that.
I'm learning this as we hear from you.
Have you looked into other options of trying to promote the freshly baked bread? Maybe exploring the option of where you have the DeBella's Italian market, like redesigning that to include it.
Yeah, as I mentioned, the DeBell's Italian market, I like the way it is right now because it's kind of like part of the trim of the building. It's not a great sign. The black letters on the DeBell's Italian market are not what I would consider to be a very strong statement, but I love it. It reminds me of some great markets that I have seen in the cities. Often you'll see these black letters on brick, and I just find it charming. It goes with the gooseneck lights that we have around it. It goes with the metal work underneath it. It's just a look to me. The window trim is all metal, and I just think it feels more like part of the trim of the building than a sign. This sign is different. I want it to really feel more like a bakery. And so the bakeries in the early days often would really stress a white letter, white pinstriping, white materials with black. White and black is often a very strong statement in any of the bakeries that you would have seen many years ago. So actually a bunch of our marketing inside the building is now white and black. In fact, we just launched a whole new sign package where we're using all of our old family photos as part of our signage. And when you walk in, you see some images from when my grandfather first came to America. The day he arrived, we have this beautiful image of a party they had for him in a basement of an apartment in Brooklyn. The day he arrived, they took that photo. And that is advertised in our catering as soon as you step through the door. That's a whole new sign package that we just started. My other grandfather, as you're exiting the building, he's on a sign actually saying thank you to you as you leave. So those black and white images, I really think go beautifully with this new sign.
One of the things that we have all discussed with all businesses in town is the signage package. I think as a business owner, you would want as many signs as you could get that make sense for your building. And as a zoning board, we want to keep everything in check and make sure that we're not overstating the sizes. We don't want Vegas downtown. Okay, that's what I say anyway.
Yeah.
I'm one of a vote of 7 of us, 5 here today. And this is something that keeps coming up. So your passion here is clear, and the desire is clear, and the look is nice. The thing that we think about, and it's something that we all weigh very seriously, is how this rolls out for future. So, as long as I can tell, you're going to probably be there but what happens in 20 years when we've given this building 3 signs? And that is something that they can put up, right? And they don't necessarily have the same aesthetic desire that you have. They want something else. This is part of our decision. So we are taking this seriously, but I want you to know that this is something that is definitely against the grain of what we would normally like to
And I
see.
completely respect that. Just to give you a little history of that plaza.
Well, I appreciate getting it too. And,
Yeah, so
you know, DeBella's is clearly a business that we like to have in Henrietta, both for personal reasons. I actually like it very much. We go there probably more than my stomach needs me to go there.
well, actually, that particular plaza, I don't know if you realize, it's called Market Square. And that's in my lease. That can't be changed. It's DeBella's Italian Market in Market Square. Everything about that plaza has been created with me involved. And I'm really proud of what's happened there. We have a thriving plaza. We also have a thriving plaza across the street from the same developer. And I think a big part of why everything's thriving is we've made the right choices. So what I'm proud of is the building has a nostalgia about it. I hope that my kids choose to run it. I've got a lease that goes on for over 50 years. I can walk away, but I don't have any interest in it. I've been investing an awful lot of money in this building. So they can't kick me out. I've got a lease that has many options. We hope that somebody in my family is going to be still standing here in front of somebody here years from now, still trying to make it a better and better building. And hopefully it's one of my kids.
Well, we're thankful that it is a solid piece of our community. That doesn't change the fact that we obviously have to make a decision here. So with that in mind, I don't know if there's more questions from the board. Anybody else? Tim, you look like.
Well, I just wanted to say this just to make sure it's clear. The ruling that we make sticks with the building, not the owners or the tenants, right? So in perpetuity means literally 1,000 years from now, whoever is an occupant in that building would have the ability to interpret this approval as however they want it, 3 signs with extra. That's the
I get you.
concern.
And that's part of our dilemma that we debate when we figure this out.
Sure.
Could that be a condition?
It's funny.
The other thing,
Oh, you,
Could it be a condition?
I
You know,
would just say let them decide.
are there any questions, Heather, from
Something
anybody?
that I think you might find valuable. There's one store that my wife and I own 100% of. It's Henrietta. All other stores we only own part of. So that's the reason I've invested and continue to try to make it a special visit. It's the only store we own 100% of. We try to run it in a way where it's run with the other company, so we're all proud to do it together. But it is the one store that my wife and I are the most proud of.
Okay. And I appreciate that input. It's important. Heather, is there any more comments or people on Zoom that have anything to say about this application?
I do not see anybody, no.
Okay, so with that, I think we can have some, I think we need a little bit of discussion on this. Would everybody agree or not? Because I'm sort of on the fence here. I'd like to discuss.
Yeah, I think that's wise.
Okay, so with that, I will close this application, but what that means, and I say this for just so you understand what we do, we'll close it. That means that you can have a seat for a minute. We will discuss this. It's not, at this point, it's not open for discussion with you. We'll call you back up when we decide, but
Well,
you'll
whatever
hear
you
this.
decide, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank
And again, please stay with us until we're done here. So has anybody's opinion changed based on this earlier component?
Can I ask this though? Have we gotten our applicants from the delayed one? Did they come back from Juicy Seafood that we could close that?
Heather, did the other application come back?
No, I did reach out via email to him and I have not had a response.
Thank you. So there's your answer, Tim.
Thank you.
So for me, I appreciate everything he's saying. I mean, I really do. And I think the store is very nice. They've done a good job over the years of keeping it that way. You all know that my concern every time we talk about signs is the capacity of the, what happens next. At the individual store and not thinking about perpetuity, I appreciate what he's doing and I like it. I have to think about those other components. So I want to hear your feedback, but I am really torn on this. This is not one that is straight cut for me.
Yeah, I think I've made my opinion clear. In my opinion, anything that our town can do to make things walkable and appealing for people to slow down and spend money at companies is good for the town. It's good for the people. in my opinion, this is an aesthetic that makes you want to kind of hang out and check it out, see what it's like and draw you. It's interesting. And I think the more we can have less huge strip malls that aren't particularly interesting that all look the same is good for the town in general. That's my feeling when I look at this. That's interesting. I want to go check it out. And I
So-
think it would be good for Henrietta to have more of that.
So you're a yes.
I'm a yes.
To build off that, I think this gives precedent to other businesses when they come. And this gives me precedent to say, here's a sign that actually provides character and a sense of place versus here's a sign there's a million of these signs right here already. We like right behind it, the Old Navy sign.
Yep.
Every store sign is like that.
But if he leaves, and I'm not claiming he
Right,
will,
right.
but if he leaves, Old Navy's equivalent of whatever it is could move in there and do the Old Navy sign there 3 times now,
Mhm.
assuming it doesn't exceed the size.
Right.
That's for me, the only dilemma that I have.
That's
'Cause
true.
I think I think this layout is beautiful. I think this facility, the way he's designed it out has always been really nice, inside and out. I can see the pride that is taken inside and out with this facility.
Yeah.
But the comment that constantly comes back in my head, and by the way, Aaron, I'm not trying to change your mind on this. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
saying it as an observation, is that
Right.
whatever happens, that Old Navy in the background, which is their brand and it's what they are, I think it's not appealing to meet the comment that Tim made, which is, I agree with his comment. If we had a whole mall that was made with charming stores,
Right.
not chain stores, that makes a very different feel to your physical experience of this mall.
Right.
And I do think that generally the mall's in very nice shape with the way it has all these things. I just keep going back to this. I hate saying the word because Jesse's not here. But the perpetuity is the thing that keeps driving me nuts.
No, it's a valid point, and I would argue that in 1,000 years, if the Bella's not there and someone else moves in, the tenant would try to match the aesthetic of the entire building and have that third external sign have the same high quality message as this one is.
That's what you guarantee?
Nope.
Oh,
Right.
oh, I
No,
think-
well, keep in mind, you can qualify the approval to the design. So if 50 years from now, they do move out, if somebody else moves in, they can put their own logo, but it has to be in the format of that sign.
So the footprint, if you will.
The footprint, so it will be that sign, it may say something else. They can't take the square feet and put it in another format if the approval is limited to that design.
Okay.
So-
Now, go ahead, Heather.
So one thing that really stuck out during testimony was that the whole plaza was kind of designed, around this building. So, there's, all these other stores within this plaza. How do we know that none of them are gonna come? Because it's not, right now, it's not in character of the plaza.
That's true.
So how do we know that down the line, because this is approved and, keep with the same look? How do we know that, DSW, Ulta, Old Navy aren't gonna come in
Well,
looking for a vertical sign?
that's a good question. And 2 things that I think about out loud when you say that. One is what Aaron said. And he was talking about, wait, you were talking about the walking nature of the, or was that
That
Tim?
was
I was
Tim,
building off
yeah.
of what he said, and it does provide it provides a character that
There was something else.
is appealing.
And I think that would be a good inspiration for other companies to try to put it as much thought into their own structures.
Well, if they were, yeah, I feel, I don't know, I don't
Well-
think that that's such a walkable, because there's other ways to make it more walkable. And I don't think that it's accomplishing what he really needs too, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, I think his only need for this sign, the only need for this sign, I don't think this is an advertising sign the way that we're used to
No.
hearing this. This is very much just creating a feeling and an aura of the time.
Mhm. And I think the sign is great, and I think it's probably done the best way possible. I'm just not for it, especially within a plaza.
If I think about Marketplace Mall, how it was the pinnacle of malls for a while, and then the potentially the bottom for a while. You know, they take the existing signs that are there and I'm going off of Kevin or Eric's comment here. They just superimpose their thing there, you know,
Right.
bizarre, you know, some bizarre field building or business, and they just put it in that sign space. Now you got a weird thing, so maybe gold chains or whatever the thing may be,
Right.
it'll now be in this bread sign if we follow that pattern. That's something I keep thinking about too. Like, I agree with Eric's comment that we could limit it to the scope here, size of it, but it might not be ideal. Do we have, can we do a straw man real quick? Who's sort of in favor of this? I'm still in the middle. And so my middle doesn't matter right now because Christian and John aren't here. We are, it's a negative. Because we need to have 4 positives. Is there any path that either of you see to positive?
No.
I would offer that if we write in the language that it and for the perpetuity component is that it has to be within the same sign format and layout, then we can be guaranteed that it's not going to turn into something extravagant and flashy that isn't with the thought that was put into this entire structure. I think it's a good cultural add to Henrietta.
I'm on the fence, not because of the way it looks, but because of my,
Ultimately, we're looking at adding a lighted sign to a plaza that will, in testimony, be lit until approximately 2 a.m. The sign in testimony isn't necessarily to draw someone in from the street or the plaza. It's to indicate they take pride in baking their own bread. Great. What does RIT students driving by and seeing a lighted sign have to do with that? If they can't see it from the road, well, somebody has to be able to see it from the road. And if I'm a college student at 1 o'clock in the morning and I see a lighted sign in a plaza, regardless of what it says, I might go, oh, they're open.
Right.
And that in and of itself changes the character of that neighborhood of nothing else in that plaza is open. The fact that you have a sign that indicates they have freshly baked bread, but not indicating the name of the business, there's no other business within that plaza that says,
shoes.
well, it's a shoe store.
Right, because the DeBella's sign, is that lit? No.
Only
Oh,
from
they
the-
just, they have the
From the
uplighting.
gooseneck lights. And
Right,
I remember when this came to this board in 2010, 11, for the 2 wall signs and the fact that it was more of a aesthetically pleasing design. And he was very excited about the ceiling and had done a lot of research in regards to the ceiling. And there was a lot of great feelings of this wasn't going to be your cookie cutter drop ceiling. This was going to be a very classy type of situation. And I agree. There is a certain charm of going into this market and being able to sit down and have your sub there or whatever else that you order. But now we're getting to something that almost seems kind of garish. You have a large slided sign that indicates that they have bread. Well,
right, and then.
what does that do in the overall other than to say I have bread? If an alternative to that would be, hey, we really wanted to highlight something, even though we have these black shutters, fresh bread, fresh baked rolls, whatever. They're not necessarily open to the public to sell it as a bakery, although you can purchase it. According to testimony, I wouldn't have thought that you could walk
I
in
had no idea.
and purchase it. And what's to stop you, from using your chicken of the sea at home to make your own sub? I don't know. There's nothing that is putting me over the top of this business needs this sign in order to continue to be a successful business.
Correct.
There's nothing to indicate to me that says by having this, it sets me apart in the sense of everybody else uses a commercial bakery. I don't have a commercial bakery. The bakery is within, and that's part of my business name. If it said DeBella's fresh baked bread at the bottom, maybe I'd be more inclined because it's drawing to that business. But there's nothing to that that really gives me that withstanding desire to add a 3rd wall sign in the course of a very short area of space on that business.
But maybe the answer is if you're on the fence if there's a way you may be persuaded, they should have the opportunity to wait and come back next month when the other two members.
I agree, because I lean towards yes. I'm very shaky on that. And Christian and John aren't here. I suspect Christian will be a no. And I suspect John would be a yes, which would, if I voted yes, that would be a successful one for them.
I think, because originally I was pretty shaky on it, but what solidifies it for me is much what Eric has said, that, we can put a condition on it that virtually makes it impossible for somebody else to put another sign up without a variance because they would have to basically mimic that sign.
Yeah.
Oh, they could easily do that.
They don't have to mimic the sign. They just have to mimic the format. And that's what I was saying. I've seen a lot of them at Marketplace where they're like, or other places where they buy a business, there's already a sign there. They just replace I'm gonna call it plastic. I don't know what they put in there for it, but the sign, the words.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks terrible.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, usually it looks terrible.
I mean,
But
it looks great like this. I think it looks terrible like that retrofitted. So, I think I'm gonna open this back up so they can come up. And to be honest, my recommendation is gonna be that we postpone it a month, unfortunately, because we had an outage due to illness and I don't know, something else. So I think we have to, I am close enough that I think I would probably say yes. And that's up to them. They can choose what they want. Yes. I will, I should wait a second to open it, right, for her to come back. It doesn't matter because we're not voting.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to reopen the session, and obviously we want to come back. Welcome back, please come up. You can clearly hear what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I hear some of your ideas, which are entertaining. She mentioned she'd feel more comfortable if it said DeBellis with the same information at the bottom, which would mean I'd have 3 DeBellis signs. And I always thought that you would probably not want that. That seemed to me like that would look a little kind of awkward. And the goal here is, once again, 2 things. Showcase the fact that Henrietta started the bread business for DeBellis. Do something special. Secondly, let's do something special for the architecture of the building and for the plaza. The goal for me truly is to get the whole thing to have a nostalgic, charming feeling. So you walk up to the building, you have a sense, if you've never been there before, I'm about to walk into something very special. Just so you know, there's an interesting place in Columbus, Ohio. It's a plaza that at one time, the area looked like Marketplace Mall does right now. Marketplace Mall is in serious trouble. It's great that we're building an addition there. I'm glad to see something positive happening. I hope the whole area becomes a little better. That'll be wonderful. But right now, let's be honest, it's a pretty big disappointment to the whole town. There was an area like that in Columbus, and instead they started doing unique things to this one plaza where they started making sure that any signage that got done was very special. And when we went there and we considered it for us, they said, hey, do you think you could have a sub actually like jetting out the building and really be architecturally special? And I thought, well, yeah, that's creative, but that sounds a little gaudy to me. But I thought that was special, that they're trying their best to do something very unique with every storefront. You'll see brands there that are just better looking. You'll see an Eddie Bauer storefront there, and it's just better looking. And I must admit, it has become one of the areas in the whole country that is probably some of the most appealing storefronts you'll ever see. And at one time, it was the most rundown part of the Columbus area. So for me, there's more pride in what I'm trying to accomplish to the architecture. But at the same time, I also want to make a statement about the bread, which we are so known for. And I think we've accomplished that in this sign. But I completely understand if you have to turn me down. Once again, it would just be a real disappointment to see the Henrietta store, which I feel is so special, not have a feature like this, when I think this is the kind of thing that you should probably try to have more people do for Henrietta. Special architecture, not necessarily signage, but great architecture. That to me is the bigger statement.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that's a bigger conversation that might be worth having a conversation with our supervisor too. But the statement that I want to make right now is I want to give you a choice. You have a choice right now. One, if we vote now, it will be voted no. Based on the count and the way that the voting works. There has to be a majority of all the members, even though 2 of them are absent, we need a 4-person majority to approve this. You don't have that the way we sit here today. So your option is accept that and we say, and we decline the application, or come back next month when the other 2 people are here. And I can't guarantee anything. You may not be better off next month, but I have a gut feel that you may have success by having at least 1 more person vote yes. So,
We'd be happy to come back next month.
and I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but sometimes the nature of the world today doesn't allow everybody to be here. So that's.
I understand.
So I think that's what we need to do. So with that, I'm going to close the application, or I'm sorry, I'm going to table the application. Thank you. I lose words. I'm going to table the application for next month, and we will have more information and have you ready for the docket next month.
Excellent. Thanks for taking the
And
time.
sorry for that, but that's
fine.
we'll get
Do we
the.
need to file anything else or just come here next month?
I will talk to Heather, who hears, Heather, do they need to file anything for next month?
We shouldn't, but we can confirm that and reach out if needed.
That should answer your question. Thank you. I appreciate your time and the information. And again,
Thank you. Thanks for all your time tonight. I really appreciate your time you put into it.
I'm glad you're a business here in Henrietta, so I said it. Thank you. With that, I would like to close the meeting for May the 4th, and it is,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
We still have the applicant that did not show up. We need to,
I think we asked her, well, I'll ask again. Heather, did the other applicant show up? Oh, should I-
Still no sign on that.
which means if
They have 30 more days, or is it 90?
Or is this the
I thought it
second
was
one?
60,
60?
60.
It's 62 days from the closing of the public hearing for that application. So I don't know that we technically opened or closed that application because we haven't really discussed it in the public hearing forum.
Just making sure we didn't.
so I don't have to decline it or anything.
Should
because-
we open it to say there's nobody here?
Oh,
I would recommend doing that and then closing it.
What
We did earlier,
before,
yeah.
right?
Did, yeah,
We
he
did
did.
last month, right?
earlier. Right.
is there a number of times you can open and close a application before it's voided or abandoned?
I thought in the past, we've agreed to let people adjourn it for 3 months and then.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
I
there's a
don't think there's a.
legal. limit.
So I'll make sure that we open. So application, hang on, 2022-007-008 and -009. I would like to open the application. Nobody's here to hear it. So in that case, I will officially close that application and table it till next month. That covers our need, at least, okay. And with that, I would like to close the hearing of May 4th at 8:27.
Heather, do you need my paperwork from last month that is this month also a carryover with my notes on it?
I would recommend you keep it in your personal files, Tim,
Got it.
because you were lucky I still had my paperwork out.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Everybody. I appreciate the hard work.